Thank you, Representative Amo. And I would remind you, it would be unconventional to have unconfirmed appointees come and testify before us. Additionally, I don't know if you were present, but Mr. Morocco did come and speak to us, testify before us as well. And Secretary Rubio is scheduled to come sometime later in May. I don't know the exact date right offhand. And I would just take the opportunity to thank Secretary Rubio for what is his commitment to the American people, which is to say very plainly that any dollar that goes out the door, whether to an American, a foreign company, a foreign NGO, a foreign nonprofit, a foreign adversary, a foreign enemy, or anybody else, will meet the justification that it's better spent going abroad than staying in the pocket of an American. That is his standard, that he should be able to look somebody in the eye and say, the dollar that came out of your pocket is better spent going to the Taliban or to some other continent or some non-government organization or somewhere else than staying in your pocket. That is the barrier, the threshold that he wishes to meet, and I applaud him on that. And I recognize Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses for your testimony today. It's been 13 years since we last passed a State Department reauthorization. Since then, we've seen organizations go totally overboard in promoting radical ideologies worldwide and executing our disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, which I take very personally. President Trump and Secretary Rubio are reforging a State Department that champions American interests and responsibility of stewards, taxpayers' dollars. Soon it will be our job to codify that, to make it permanent. I think when we talk about responsibilities and shifting responsibilities inside of our departments, Mr. Jeffrey, I wanted to ask you, there have been discussions about making the Department of Homeland Security responsible for overseas visa operations instead of the state. This is a critical matter, especially in my constituency, which is about 14% Indian diaspora, about 40% minorities, many who have family who come in and out of the United States. I just want to make sure that when we ensure the Department of Homeland Security takes over, that they are prepared to do so without any problems in the transition. Do you think that's possible?
I can't get into the details of who they would have. As a basic principle, however, they own the policies. They work with Congress to develop our overall immigration policy. The Immigration and Naturalization Act is under their purview, and thus I think they should have people in the field who are doing that, just like other agencies have people in the field. A critical rationale for that, Congressman, is that this usually doesn't involve high-level country-to-country discussions, because every country treats who comes in and out of its country as its own business. And, for example, you may be issuing visas in Ecuador. The Ecuadorian government isn't going to be calling you all of the time to protest what you're doing or not doing. So you don't have the same level of diplomatic involvement. That is usually the litmus test for me of whether the State Department and an embassy should manage that through the State Department officers there, or whether we should have other people out there.
So in other words, we'll be able to execute this without losing any abilities or time, but just make it a little bit safer for the American people?
And the devil is always in the details on any administrative change. They always bring with them turmoil in the short run. In the long run, the question is it a more rational way of applying our resources and our focus? That's a function that isn't central to protecting the American people in terms of threats from abroad. Well, actually it is, I'm sorry, but it is a very important mission, but it is one, again, that's technical in nature and that follows very specific laws, again, that DHS, not the State Department, puts out.
Okay, great. Mr. Hale, $1 million question for you. Based on your experience, what specific changes can we make to the State Department through this reauthorization bill that would have the biggest positive impact on our national security and diplomacy? I know that's a big question, but if you can hone it down to what is the one big bite we can take out of this that would make us better?
Insist that the Foreign Service actually goes back to basics. Whatever organizational chart you look at, is going to reflect certain transitory values, but the Foreign Service has to do its basic core function of diplomacy. And so as you write this authorization bill, I would ask you again, as I said at the beginning, to be persistent and not just, once you've written a bill, you're done. It's also about the continued engagement to make sure the Foreign Service actually has the training and the skills and the leadership needed to fulfill whatever mandates you've given through the authorization process. And I would say the biggest, to get really to your question, to me, the biggest gap right now that I see when you look down the horizon that we're not ready for is the growing importance of science and technology in the work of diplomacy. We're never going to be scientists. We're never going to be, that person, but we have to have much greater fluency in the substance of science writ large. I'm talking about everything from cyber to pandemics than is the case today.
As a member of cyber on HASC, as a member of science-based technology, and as a member of foreign affairs, I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you for that summary. We didn't even coordinate. With that, I yield, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Representative McCormick.